About 10 months ago, I was sitting in class, and my classmate who was sitting next to me was playing a game that brought back a lot of memories. And that game is Johnny Upgrade. I remember back in elementary school, we would have some days where the teacher would take us to the computer lab, and we would just get free time to do whatever we want. It was only right that during that time I played video games, so of course I got on cool math games because that was like the only website that was unblocked at school. I remember one of the first games I ever played in computer lab being Johnny Upgrade. For those of you who are unfamiliar, Johnny Upgrade is a game that starts off with a timer that has no time, but as you play, you can upgrade the timer, and you can also buy abilities with the coins you gain throughout the game to defeat enemies and eventually the boss. Now, I had been watching Fat Dino's videos for a while, and I just started learning Unreal, so I figured why not try to remake the game, but in 3D. So to begin, I got some references from online and started to create Johnny Upgrade's 3D model. For this project, I went with a low poly approach because I wanted this to be something quick and fun. I also was working on my own project on the side, as well as being a full-time student. Once I was done modeling, I quickly did UVs and texturing. I then downloaded a software called JPEG's free flash decompiler. I used this to get references for the animations. I then rigged the model and then made the basic idle, walk, and jump animations. I also used JPEG's flash decompiler to get the layout for the level. After I finished making the side platformer layout in Unreal Engine, I began making the level blockout with a tool called Cube Grid. And at last, we finally have Johnny Upgrade in Unreal Engine. But Johnny had no money, so the next thing I decided to work on was the coins. Making the coins was pretty simple. I just took a circle and then extruded it and colored it gold. I then began to place coins around the level using the layout I got from JPEG's flash decompiler as reference. I then went back in Blender and got the coin texture from the original game and used that instead. I used project from view for the UVs for a lot of stuff to save some time. I also animated the coins so that they spin and go up before they're destroyed. One of the coolest things, in my opinion, about the original Johnny Upgrade game is the death animation. He has this really gruesome explosion, and I wanted to recreate that in Unreal Engine. So using the original model as a reference, I started to model his death animation parts. This consisted of his limbs with bones sticking out, his skull, an organ, his glasses, and his hair. The way I ended up doing the death animation in Unreal Engine is by putting all of these meshes in one actor and then adding an impulse towards the center and spawning this whenever his health reaches 0. I also created a particle system for the blood drops. With JPEG's flash decompiler, I also grabbed some sound effects for the game. I made the spikes in Unreal and then make them do damage. And here's what it looks like inside the game engine. Since I was done with that, I decided to make some more enemies. First decided to make the helicopter mine thing. I'm not really sure what those are called, but I made it and animated it inside of Blender, and here's what it looks like inside of Unreal. Up next was the robot. I modeled the base. My plan was to add spikes onto it inside Unreal, but I never actually ended up doing that. The game also has these 2 buzzsaw things that kind of spin around, and I decided to model that as well. Once I was done modeling the enemies, I decided to add them to the level. I also added some lasers and some moving platforms from the original game. I also went ahead and retextured a lot of the models in Substance Painter and made them more realistic. I used the level reference from earlier to finish placing coins around the world. There's a free asset called Good Sky, and I used this to change the sky's color. And it's not Johnny Upgrade without the final boss, so I quickly modeled the boss in Blender. Now in the beginning, I said 10 months ago. That's because it took me 10 months to find the motivation to actually finish this project. This is because of 2 things. 1, because when I started it, I had no idea what I was doing in Unreal. And 2, because by the time I did know what I was doing in Unreal, I looked back and the code was so bad that I just didn't even want to try. But I eventually broke it down and just completely redid the blueprint for the boss, and Here's the final product. I hope you guys enjoy. Yup, I just died in my own video game. Let's try this again. Oh yeah, now that's what I'm talking about.